Good morning. Sun getting ready to break through the clouds. Good day for tennis. Been watching the Australian Open. I don't think it's been one of the great Australian Opens, but we've seen some interesting tennis. Alcaraz always fantastic to watch, and a few other things that grabbed my attention. One was Coco Gauff the other night after she was beaten. Very fine American player. She was behind the courts, inside. She didn't know she was being filmed, and she tried to get rid of her frustration and her anger. She was smashing her racket to pieces, apart from the waste of a perfectly good racket. A lot of people were critical of her behavior, but I thought more along the lines of it was an invasion of her privacy, in that there's got to be a place where tennis players can get rid of the frustrations, the anger after a game like that. It happens in all sports. Some people handle these things differently. Butch Harmon was Tiger Woods' coach at one point, and Tiger used to get incredibly angry as a young bloke after bad shots. And Butch Harmon said, listen, you're holding on to this too long. He said, you've got 20 meters or 50 seconds, whatever it was. He had a time period and a distance. By then, the anger's got to be gone. You've got to be thinking about your next shot. Makes sense. But the bigger issue was privacy. It wasn't that long ago, back in the 80s, when Bob Hawke, mind you, the 80s is a long time ago now, but Bob Hawke, Prime Minister then, was trying to bring in an Australia card, simply to identify us, to provide proof. But the argument was it's an invasion of our privacy. Well, you think about that now, and we've all almost forfeited any sense of privacy, haven't we? You know, you've got your mobile phones, you've got everything else. They can track every transaction, they can trace every movement we make. So privacy seems to be a thing of the past, as does Nick Kyrgios' career. Nick making no secret of the fact that he's ready to move on. And a lot of people are disappointed with Nick, that he hasn't been what his talent promised that he might do. But I saw one person the other day saying our criticism of Nick is based on the tall poppy syndrome. Well, I don't know that, for a start, there's much criticism of Nick. I think we just understand and appreciate Nick for what he is, and he's given us a lot of enjoyment down the years. But whenever I hear this tall poppy syndrome, it goes back to ancient Roman times, and the king Lucius was taking his son Sextus through the fields, showing him how to deal with your opponents, just knock off the tall poppies. And they say that Australia has this tall poppy syndrome, but I can't think of any people who have been criticised simply because they were successful. I can think of a lot of successful people who were criticised because they didn't always behave as we would want them to behave, but that's a very different thing to criticising somebody just because they're successful. We've celebrated our champions in all fields of endeavour. So every time I hear the tall poppy syndrome, I think, hold on a second. You think of all our great athletes, from Dawn Fraser to Betty Cuthbert, all to Susie O'Neill, you name them, all the way through, men's and women's. We celebrate them. Anna Mears. We love our great athletes. And only when they behave poorly do they justifiably get criticism. And they get criticism because they're in the public eye when most people aren't. But Nick Kyrgios is interesting in a lot of ways. Some people say he didn't fulfill his potential. But in a way, he did. Because your potential in the end is what you do. And for all kinds of reasons, Nick did what he was capable of doing. No shame in that. Great credit in that. In fact, his story sometimes reminds me of the great Irish soccer player, George Best. I had a bit to do with bringing George out here years ago. Nice guy. Drink was his problem at one point, but he was asked, why did you waste your talent? And where's all your money gone? And George said, well, I spent a lot on booze, women, and fast cars, and I wasted the rest. Have a good day.